Good evening and welcome to The Square. Tonight's discussion is going to focus on the rates of divorce in Rwanda and some of the reasons for this rise in numbers. We're going to look at how families are impacted by this as they navigate their ways in the modern settings. Joining us to shed light on this conversation, we are joined here this evening by Bishop retired John Rutihana. Thank you for honoring our invitation. Thank you very much, Bishop. Also part of this conversation from a legal perspective is Johnson Kabeda from Kigali Allied Advocates. Johnson, thank you for joining us.
Okay.
My name is Dan Mpisi. I'm part of The Square. I'm joined as well by my lovely panel resident panelist, Charles and Berna. Pleasure to have you always.
Thank you.
Thank you, Berna. And Ephraim and Dana, how are you?
Good.
Yes.
We're also joined by Ephraim, who was not here last week. Great to have you back on board this week.
Thank you for having me.
Yes.
I'll be listening.
We did. We did. So tonight's conversation is understanding the rates of divorce in Rwanda, and we are going to have different perspectives. We're joined here by Bishop Rutihana and having a social, cultural, as well as religious perspective, and we're also joined here by Johnson Kabera to give us a legal perspective. It's a very interesting topic. I think we're going to get straight into it, unless you have anything in the week you'd like to share?
I just have one, Dana.
Yes.
As I was walking in, I stopped by to watch the bit of the Kinyarwanda news, and I was particularly perturbed by a story around potatoes and Irish potatoes. And it reminded me that there's something wrong around this, and we're going to keep singing this song around institutional coordinations until the cows come home.
Especially on The Square.
Yes. Milk and potatoes, food and beverages. One extremely essential aspect of our lives. Why should we have certain parts of Rwanda where milk is poured when we have other parts of Rwanda where children are suffering from malnourishment? Why should we have certain parts of Rwanda where people who have harvested Irish potatoes are not allowed to take those potatoes to the marketplace when in other places people are suffering from lack of food? There's something that is not right around our institutional coordination.
Interesting. This is part of a weekly recap, but because I think in the interest of time, we usually have a midweek recap, but I think in the interest of time, we're just going to dive in into the topic. So thank you very much once again to our guests for joining us. My first question is to you, Bishop, and this is to do with more or less traditional and modern values as a probable cause for the prevalence of divorce rates in Rwanda. And I'll just start by reading a few facts and figures that we received. So figures at Nyarugenge Primary Court indicate that between August 2017 and August 2018, the court adjudicated 133 divorce cases. So there are schools of thought that say some of the rise of divorce cases in the country as a result of families adopting modern values that actually impact on the family unit and divorce in general. So my question to you, from your perspective, what is your take on this?
Well, thank you so much, Diana. I think the problem that causes really the increase of divorce in our society is not necessarily the adoption of other cultures. It's a combination of different evils. One, I hope you bear my language, the religious language. One is that we are marrying now for the wrong cause. The motive of marriages today is wrong. People are not marrying because they love. People are marrying because of conveniency, because of other purposes. You've learned that of recent, people are complaining that young men are requiring either a bicycle, a motorbike, some kind of money from the girl in order to marry them. That's the wrong cause. You don't marry because somebody gives you something. You marry because you love her, and she marries you because she loves you. Traditionally, we didn't marry because of any other purpose. People married because they loved the families, and they loved the girls they were marrying, and they also loved and admired the families from where the girls are coming from. they admire the upbringing, the nature, the values of the family the young lady came from, and the purpose of marriage was to make a home. The growth of the home, the values of society. So one of the key problems is marrying for the wrong purpose. The motive is wrong in most cases. And it's not only in Nyarugenge that there is an increase. We were in one of the districts, and they were targeting, they were having imihigo on Gatanya, so they were expecting that within a year they will have so many targets of divorce. They are not targeting to unite, to reconcile. They are targeting to officiate divorces. So it is becoming a target. So the whole thing, the whole concept of marriage is getting distorted. And this is not it's not actually on an interesting topic. It's a delicate issue. It's worrying and it's scaring. The rate is scaring. And this is not only affecting the marriages per se, it affects the whole society. They are getting children, they are bearing children for the streets. They are bearing children for the drugs because they are not getting the love. Because the father and the mother are not marrying because they love each other. They have no values, the Rwandan culture, the Rwandan values. They are marrying for convenience. They are marrying because she has a motorbike, she has a bicycle to produce. Therefore, when the bicycle, the tire is flat, they divorce. So it's the whole concept. It's malolab. It's not only foreign cultures. It's the intent. And I think maybe we should consider. We maybe have another deeper discussion. Maybe the history of this country affected the humanness. Our humanness. And we are now becoming more shallower than we were meant to be. So something has to be done that the family becomes central in life. Children are being born. I was in Irutsiro a few days ago, and somebody was telling us when these children grow, seeing their parents fighting and beating each other, they know that's the way of life. They marry to beat. They marry to fight. They marry to divorce. They don't have the value, that depth of the sense of life and love and the commitment to each other. So it's much bigger. It's more than that. You commit to live. You commit to the values. You commit to the society. Culturally, we used to commit. Rwanda used to commit in marriage. Not only boy and a girl married, they used to know that they belong to the clan, they belong to the clans, they belong to the society, and they belong to the nation. Therefore, procreation was one of the issues that committed the husband and the wife and God. Before Christianity, before Islam came to Africa, the Rwandese involved God in their marriages, in their vows, in their commitments. And the procreation and the bearing of children was between the wife and the husband and God. And that sense is gone also. Even the Christians today, I hope they won't stone me when I say this. Even the Christians don't have this concept. They go to church, they get them wedded, but that's all. It's a ceremony. The depth of commitment, marrying in a long-term view, with a vision of seeing the two beginning, at the very beginning, seeing themselves with the children who will be coming later. And having the view that these children will be for the clan, these children will be for the nation. And they have to have values, and they have to be respectable people in a respectable family. And we have lost that. We are losing that.
Thank you very much. Charlie, I can see you really want to weigh in on what the bishop is
No,
saying.
I'm really itching to say something, but
Yes.
just before Bana comes in, you know, I have a lot of admiration for the bishop, and his introductory remarks have even increased that admiration by threefold, because I did not expect that a man of the pulpit would be as candid as he is on some of these things. But I want to throw a spanner in the works, and just basing from what the bishop has just said. Because society presses us so much to marry at a certain price, and by the price is either how much bride price you pay, or at the price like the extreme example the bishop has given, of where now the boys, and it has flipped. The boys are now asking the girls to chip in into their social lives, but also at the higher price of how flamboyant your wedding is going to be. If it's at the expense of taking a loan, so be it. Now, because society has those pressures, coupled with the fact that your family, as a girl, you clock 28, your family will start asking you questions. What's happened? Where is so-and-so? We can't see anybody. That is not going to allow you to love genuinely, as the bishop was saying. So you will think that the clock is ticking so fast, and you will compromise on the love aspect. But that said, I started this by saying I want to throw a spanner in the works. What if we became more tolerant to cohabiting?
Interesting. That's an interesting...
such that we start getting to know each other.
You know,
we start getting to love each other before we bow to the social pressures of getting married when we're not ready to get married.
Ephraim, very quickly, and Bernard, before we give
so
it
I want to add to what he's saying, but not necessarily in relation to cohabiting. I want to talk about the pressure. And, you know, there's another pressure we don't talk about that happens. So you find two individuals, they come together and they love one another. And you see that these two people really want to be together, but their families are trying to get them to marry for the wrong reasons. So you talk of the stuff, like you said, admiration of somebody's family, talking of a clan. You find situations where people will be like, look, as much as you guys love one another, we are not going to allow you to get married to so-and-so because of X, Y, and Z. Now, in such situations, let's say the couple do go ahead and get married. You find that during the course of the marriage, there are always these external voices that are trying to put pressure on this relationship so that it could break. And you find, at least from the interactions I've had with people who have gone through divorce, they say that one of the largest causes of divorce, or at least stress points in our relationship, were their families, or at least members of their family that were disapproving of that union.
Brenda, just very quickly.
Yeah, very quickly. First of all, I'm not a relationship guru.
All of us.
None of us are.
Yes, just my opinion. And I would like to disagree. Bishop, please allow me to disagree.
That's why we're here.
Allow me to disagree, one, on the issue of love. Because I feel that, in a way, the love that we talk about in the environment of marriage and relationship is problematic because it's emotive. And as we know, emotions change. I would like to look at it differently in the sense that I feel that if people were more responsive and dutiful in these relationships, beyond love, to feel that it is your duty to treat this person as a human being. For instance, the basics. That is one. And then two, tolerance. Because you talked about history. If we look at our history, reconciliation, tolerance, we have done so much. So how come we are failing when it comes to marriage? Yet we have families, you know, a genocide survivor, a perpetrator, they're living together. So what is the missing link?
Well, I think there are two different things. Hopefully he will interject, or possibly somebody will have to come in. You see, let me begin with the cohabiting. Cohabiting is even worse Cohabiting, you cohabit with somebody with your idea. That helps me to explain the danger of cohabiting. You cohabit conditionally because you are trying, you are testing things, and you are testing each other. Then when you get at certain things that you don't get attracted to, you go and cohabit with somebody else. Because it's cohabiting anyway. It's trying.
Yeah.
So
it's convenient. Convenience type of approach. That is not marrying. That is serving each other. It does not give you that long-lasting commitment responsible for each other, and therefore responsible for your offspring.
Bishop, you are an educationist. You know very well that before you do exams, you do tests.
Maybe before you get a certificate, you get.
I don't necessarily
but anyway, let's. I'm an educationist. I agree. We have to do a test, but you can test yourself as you live together. When you are in marriage, you discover each other. You test each other, but you have to bear, you have responsibility for each other, and you have responsibility for the future and for your children. It's the continuity of life and society. It's not a matter of trying each other and then go. No, that's not that. So coming to your point, therefore, you are saying that you think we have to be able to love. It's an issue of love. It's responsibility. It's commitment. Actually, it's better understood and done in a concept of a commitment to each other, responsible for your offspring, continuity of life. That what you say is done actually in the concept of love, because those ideas that you shared is actually explained through love, because that's why you have responsibility, that's why you have the productivity, that's why you have to contribute to that family. Each of the two has to have a duty. But you have to do that duty in the concept of the continuity, in the concept of your values, in the concept of the values of the society, in the concept of raising your children in the humanness, the expected life. And you have to do it together. So your point is pressure.
It's pressure from families.
From families.
Yes.
That has ever been there. It started with Adam and Eve. When Adam was complaining, he said, God, it's not me, it's the other woman.
That you gave me.
That you gave me. You gave me. So the accusation and those kind of pressures have been there. But the pressure, the worst pressure, is what you mentioned, that somebody will say, but you have to get married. You don't marry because somebody tells you you get married. You marry because you feel you need it. You need to make a home. You need to be able to have the shoots. You need to develop yourself. You need to grow out of yourself. Because in the Rwandan concept, the Rwandese used to say that when you get children, you get the shoots out of yourself. You have many more out of yourself. Therefore, you survive even before you die. That's the concept. In other words, your life springs out into another person, and you develop yourself into that person, into your daughter, your son, and by the time you live, you know that you will live longer even after you die, because you have produced yourself.
You have an offspring.
So you have offspring, and you have therefore what they call gushibuka. You have therefore have the shoots out of you, and you are going to live. So that continuity is that which is required in Rwanda.
Bishop, thank you very much for your traditional, I think that was very much needed on the panel. Brenda, I know you want to say something, but I want us to give a chance.
We'll talk about tradition again.
Yes, to hear from a legal perspective, And the reason, Johnson, you're here is to bring that sort of narrative to the table. If you can just tell us, what is the process of divorce in Rwanda? Is it a case whereby, there's a disagreement and divorce papers start flying immediately? What is the process? And if you can also give us an instance of, I know the data is not really there as we speak, but the prevalence to a certain degree of divorce rates in this country today.
Thank you, Diana. Before I talk about divorce, let me talk about the family. Our constitution is very clear. The family is the natural foundation of the Rwandan society. And it has to be protected by the state. They protect this family by enacting laws to that effect, protecting the family. You know, without a family, cannot have a country. Now, the right to marry and found a family is also a right enshrined in our constitution. You marry and have a family, and in marriage, we have only one marriage recognized by law, and that is between a man and a woman of age, 21 years of age, who go before a government official, in this case maybe executive secretary, or mayor, or for those who are out of the country, and they officiate the marriage. The rest, like Abba said, cohabiting is not allowed.
Not allowed in terms of it's not recognized as
legally.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
As marriage.
The only marriage that is recognized is that
Civil marriage.
officiated before a government official. Civil marriage.
Civil marriages.
And only one man and one woman.
So no polygamy.
No.
Okay.
That's
No,
not.
no sharing.
And in this case, a very, very important factor. Yeah, a very important factor that is mentioned is consent of both parties. There has to be consent of both the wife or the man and the woman for marriage to be legal or to be officiated. So that marriage also needs to be love. There has to be love for marriage to be long-lasting. But once this love fades, we find these cases of divorce. Because not even courts can force spouses to live together without love. This is very, very important. You cannot compel a husband to live with a wife without love. So this is where we find...
But we know many continue to live without love. And they live together, they don't actually divorce.
Yes, such cases may be there.
And there are many.
I think so, yes. But I'll talk on the legal point. Even, in Rwandan societies, maybe Bishop will tell us, there used to be some saying that zirarazisha. Yes? Conflicts have been there from the beginning. Now, it is upon the parties or the spouses to either sit down and solve those conflicts or allow them to escalate to the courts. And this is why we find there are many cases in courts. So there are conflicts, but the spouses have a duty to bring them to table and discuss. But failure to get a solution, there is also another route of going to court. And this is filing for a divorce. So maybe later I'll tell you forms of divorce.
Actually, if you can tell us now, just
Yeah.
So briefly, yes, in somewhere in the form.
There are two ways you can file for divorce. There is mutual agreement between the parties, the spouses, where both of you agree and make an agreement and take it to the judge for validation. And there is another one where there are grounds for divorce. There are about 8, maybe I'll not go through them. But there are about 8. But also in Rwanda, the judge can order a divorce in case of irreconcilable differences. Yes. So this is, the judge has a right to decide whether this marriage is not moving anymore and order for a divorce, and or the parties themselves can agree to dissolve it. Of course, the other form of dissolution of a marriage is where one of the parties dies. So,
and I just want to quickly ask you, in terms of divorce, and I don't know if this is from at the court level or the level of the district, but when couples come forward, I've been told that they're often repealed and told to go back for a certain period of time. I don't know if it's 6 to 12 months before they can actually formally go through the divorce. What is this process?
So when there is a conflict, they file for the divorce in the district court.
Yes.
And they are called before the judge to try and reconcile the spouses. In most cases, this is a formality and it doesn't go through. Usually, when they reach that level of court, there is no going back.
It's rare that they rescind that
Very
decision.
Rare.
Okay.
So they give them another 3 months to think about it. Maybe they can drop the idea of divorce. After the 3 months, you are allowed to proceed with the case. But in most cases, the 3 months are just for waiting for a negative answer. Okay. Yeah.
Brenna, you had something to say
Yes,
before we go for a break.
I wanted to
Yes.
comment on what the good bishop talked about,
Yes.
especially around children, expectations around couples having children. What happens if you can't have children in that marriage? Does that mean that marriage should automatically end?
Not at all.
Okay, so why should we look at marriage and link marriage directly to children?
Marriage, I was talking in the concept of the setting of marriage. Marriage, the husband and the wife expected to have children. But in the case they don't have a child, the marriage remains.
But most of the time, actually, the marriage doesn't remain.
It remains.
It doesn't.
Traditionally, marriage remained. What they used to do is, in the traditional marriages, they used to have second wives, which was then in their time allowed.
So why can't we have that option today? Do you think it's...
Today,
To be realistic.
with your pressures and your modern times, you may not be able to do that, but marriage remains.
Yeah.
There are some people who break away from each other when they have children, and there are those who break when they don't have children. But the basis of divorce is bad relationship.
Actually, if I can just comment on that one, and actually like the traditional times, because indeed, as Bishop would say, you would have a situation where, because you didn't have modern medicine at the time, so you wouldn't know exactly whose problem it is. So
they used to accuse it on the woman.
Quite often.
Sometimes it was on the men. And the men will test the second wife, and they won't have children.
Yes.
Then they realize there is a bigger problem.
Yes.
Not the lady.
Yes. And then they would allow, first of all, it was okay for the man to sample the wife's sister.
Not only to sample,
Yes.
to marry another one.
Yes.
Actually, the sampling, the cohabiting, was not there in the traditional setting.
No, necessarily, but the wife was at liberty to import a sister and say, "Come and help me with this small problem."
But Charles, let me explain where my question is coming from.
Yes.
I feel like absolutely. You know, you've talked about materialism taking over. You've talked about societal pressures, family pressures. But I just want to take the conversation in a different direction, and we'll come back to this whole traditional versus modern values later. And I want to ask, because there are studies that have shown that divorce, in most cases, especially across sub-Saharan Africa, is a result of women who are now socioeconomically more autonomous. You know, these are women who are now able to take care of themselves and are able to live abusive relationships. And here I'm not only talking about gender-based violence. There are also studies in Rwanda that show that intimate partner violence, IPV, is actually something that's on the rise. So what I want to throw this question to the panel. One of the schools of thought is that divorce cases on the rise is also a result of women being socioeconomically sound compared to their predecessors and are now able to actually make a decision to file for divorce and leave abusive households. What's your take on this?
I can relate to that because
issue?
If you look at the harshness of our society, when a man and a woman go through divorce, it is easier for a man to move on quicker and not be judged by society than a woman. Now, what that economic empowerment and social empowerment and general women empowerment has done, it has allowed women, first of all, to remain single for a long time, two, to even be allowed to be richer and more prosperous than their men, and so on and so forth. So if you link that to divorce, society will no longer judges the women as harsh, because after all, they can survive without their men and still be not be conceived as being a social outfit. So I can relate to that school of thought.
Yes, Brenda.
Just to comment on what he's saying, first of all, personally, I'm glad that women can now actually pursue and file for divorce.
Under
It's a
abusive
trend. It's a trend that I think has to be encouraged, because for a very long time, women have been stuck in very abusive relationships, very stuck in abusive relationships because of family expectations. Now that we have women who are empowered and can at least be able to move on, I think it's progress. Now, I'm uncomfortable with the discussion around, oh, so you have empowered women, now this is why we have divorce. I don't think so. I think it goes back to the fundamental issues in our society, because now, again, thankfully, women have options. So you can be able to sustain yourself, because for a very long time, most of these women were stuck in relationships because they could not sustain themselves.
We have
I don't think the link is so much about, because there's a tendency to sort of feel like women have been given, yes,
You see, there is something that needs to be put right here. Empowering women is the right thing to do.
Absolutely.
Everybody, we will want 100% women empowerment be done in our society.
Yes.
But being empowered does not mean that you fail your human obligation. You fail to be responsible for your family and for your marriage. And the men who don't want progressive women are failing themselves, are failing the society. So we don't want to limit anybody in order to maintain marriages which are not marriages anyway. If you live in an abusive relationship, you are not really living in the best of yourself. And you need to be the best of yourself. So if the marriage is abusive, it's not the right marriage. Because even in a tradition, there were divorces. They used to have divorces. They used to have conflict resolution in families. And they used to have temporary divorces, separation for kwaukana. And they used to get them reconciled. There was a provision for that. But the rate of divorce was low. So what is getting wrong is that failure of committing to what you need to be committed to for a purpose of living together in the continuity of society. So very soon we shall be developing a kind of a desire, a carefree type of approach in life that will cause our society to disintegrate. And we don't want to go there either. We need to be empowered, we need to be educated, we need to be productive, we need to be the best in every area, aspect of life, but we need to remain humane, productive, and we need to have the continuity of life as a nation.
And I think,
Brenda, we'll come back. Please hold your thoughts. Hold your thoughts. We'll definitely come back to you. We're just going to take a break for a few seconds. Please stay tuned. to the square. Tonight we're having a very dynamic and engaging conversation on what was formerly taboo, but I think today really isn't in Rwanda, the rate of divorce in the country and the impact on families and societies as well. Ephraim, before we went for the break, you had some pressing issues that you wanted to share.
Yeah, so, you know, we're here trying to discuss why the rate of divorce is on the rise. And obviously, across during this conversation, we've talked of abusive marriages. We've listed a couple of things you mentioned before we went for the break. We talked about women empowerment. But one thing that we have not talked about, and I don't know if it's because we're scared to talk about it, is fidelity or infidelity in marriages in today's society. How faithful our partners in our marriages today. And this is something that I think we genuinely need to talk about, and the effect it's having on marriages in Rwanda today. Yeah.
That's basically
Ephraim,
spouses that are not faithful.
People are, frankly speaking, we all know this, that fidelity, at least on my side, infidelity is on the rise. What used to seem like it used to be a hidden thing is now starting to become a little bit more public. People are okay with it. People even have the conversation on what we call open marriages as a solution to solving infidelity and still allowing the unit of marriage to exist. So you find open marriages where the spouses allow each other to cohabit with other people, or have unofficial second wives, or even bring people into the marital home to experiment. And again, I'm not a moral police to say this is right or this is wrong, but I'm saying this is something that's happening and it needs to be discussed.
I think that's a discussion we'll probably have to have its own episode, its own topic for, because it's really broad, and I think we need to do a deep dive into it.
But I think he's right.
Yes.
It's part of the reasons that homes are breaking, are getting broken.
Brenna?
I would look at it differently. I think it goes back to the fundamental values, faithfulness. Being a decent human being, as the good bishop would describe. Now, it is very difficult to resolve moral issues because, again, like we were talking, it goes back to family values. The places where we grow up as children, what kind of values do we grow up? Because eventually these manifest when you're an adult. Now, I wanted to go back to the issue of women. Now, in my view, there's a misconception that we have arrived. Like, you have so many women who are economically empowered, and as a result, that is why you have so many divorces. I beg to disagree. If anything, we have so many young women who are not economically empowered. As a result, most of the time, the kind of relationships that they engage in, first of all, there's a lot of, there's a gap. This young woman will be looking at this man and saying, can he provide? Can he do ABCD for me? And what happens, because the expectations are high, one, the big wedding, after the wedding, where we live, what neighborhood we live, what kind of schools do my kids go to? Now, remember, this is probably a young woman who is unemployed. But she has all these expectations around this man who has...
in summary, your question
first of all, I think it's misleading to think that we have the critical mass of empowered women who can cause the divorce rate to go up.
But I want to disagree with you shortly and say that statistics have actually shown that...
Which study?
I can send them to you.
Not in Rwanda. I haven't seen that.
The majority of households, as it exists, the women are the largest contributor, economic contributor to, and it's true. This is on the basis that even if the man earns more, the amount of that income that goes into the home is less than the woman's. So you find that in some situations, and this is what I'm saying, it's not about the empowerment, and I'm not saying that women are more empowered and that they aren't vulnerable people, but I'm saying statistically, when it comes down to it, women have, at least there's a good number of women that have the capacity to take care of a home.
Brenna, we do.
Can we? You have two agreeing factors. Yes. But you are not really getting them together. They are not complementing each other. I agree with you that women in Rwanda are not the number of women who are having cash monthly are not, the number is not great. They are not too many. But as he's putting a fact up on the table that women at all levels in Rwandan society are economically contributing to their families, be it on the agricultural subsistence, be it on job, low-level job earning or high-level earning. Women who have money are contributing to the well-being of the family than a lot of men.
I'll supplement
Charles,
the point that Bishop is saying. Sorry.
Yes, no, you supplement later.
There's a point that
but
people
Charles,
are missing.
we need to go to our social media, please.
Yes,
please make it brief.
Yes, I'll be very, very brief. That if there was a way we could quantify what the contribution of the woman is, even the housewife who does nothing, because we're all assuming economic activity.
And that's what is done as
none of them does nothing.
Unpaid labor.
Yes, there's no one who does nothing in the home.
That's what they call unpaid labor.
Exactly.
You know?
Yes. So I just wanted to supplement the point that you did.
Thank you very much. We're going to go quickly to our social media feed because there's some tweets coming in that I think we should definitely consider people who are watching. And our first tweet is from someone called Abdel Mugeruka. And Abdel says, I have a different perspective. There are insecure jobs and finance within these times, and as a result, families have misunderstandings that sometimes prompt divorce. We don't know what's happening behind closed doors. God knows.
Can I just mention that? You know, we talked about the change in the, I forgot what it was, when in relation to communal property.
Yes.
So for the longest in Rwanda, and this is in relation to what he's saying, we know that financial strains in relationships take a really huge toll on the condition of marriages. And coming back to the point of what we've been talking about in terms of who contributes economically to the well-being of the household, you find that the law in itself, and I think actually it was an article in the East African, if I'm not wrong, where it talked about the act in itself that said you have to marry in communal property, in the sense that there was that 50-50. If you bought land, 50-50. If you're going to get a bank loan, you have to.
The law has never been as such. But it is just a common practice. But the law, because the law gives you an option. It gives you 3 options. Yeah, it gives you 3 options. It gives you either to be 50-50, or it gives you an option to you bring whatever you bring, I bring whatever I'm bringing, and then it is only what we have made together that is jointly owned. It also gives you a third option. Whatever you do is yours, whatever I do is mine. But that, yes.
Ephraim, we'll go to our next tweet, and this is, I really want to get at least 2 or 3 tweets from and engage our audience. And this is from someone called M, and M says that these days people meet on Instagram, okay? Bars, nightclubs, etc. And they don't look at the bigger picture. They are into financial and physical attributes, yet we all know that those are not the most important attributes of a partner. He says that this is cultural degeneration. This is from Richard Rwandera. So this touches on what you were saying in terms of infidelity, what the bishop said. But I wanted you to just, if you could just briefly take us through the regimes, the marriage regimes that Charles mentioned for the sake of the panel and our viewers, the 3 different...
There are 3 marriage regimes.
Yes.
There is community of property, where you share everything had before the marriage. And then there is limited community, but then there is also separation of property. So those are 3 regimes, and there is also all the spouses have a right to choose from the 3 regimes that are provided by the law.
Our next tweet is someone from, he's called Gentil, and Gentil says, the square RW, time has come when no one should stay in unhappy marriages just because society expects you to stay. No. So I think this is something whereby, something that we've been discussing on the square in terms of this societal and familial pressures, but it's not necessarily something that...
I think the question is, how do you define an unhappy marriage?
It's between 2 people.
No, but I mean, like, if you have a disagreement today, you're unhappy at that particular
and this is what Bishop was saying, that our level of commitment and understanding our purpose in marriages is something that's flailing. Brenna, you wanted to add something before we close?
Let me just throw it again to the Bishop.
Are you sure it's not the same question?
It's not often that you get to argue with the Bishop. So let us have a field day, Diana.
On live television. Moreover.
I just I was thinking about this when we came up with this topic, and looking at the role of religion, you know, in marriage. We have so many churches, we have Mormons who are Christian, and most of these marriages are not just civil. They go to church. You know, people go to church. Yes, even if they're not obliged to.
Mosques.
Yes, and I'm just wondering, what is happening in these churches? Is it that pastors or whoever they are, they're just happy to, you know, officiate the ceremonies, but not go an extra mile to help these couples build, you know, meaningful relationships?
Well,
I want to supplement.
You want to supplement?
You want to supplement on that, because I think the responsibility goes beyond churches, because, you know, in Rwanda, I mean, you have customary marriage, religious marriage, and civil marriage. Johnson was very spot on that the only one that is constitutionally allowed in Rwanda is the civil marriage. Now, therein lies a problem, because, and Bana is spot on the fact that the role of the churches and the role of the civil status officer, the civil marriage, it is not as prominent as it should be. Because if you look at it, at most, they will announce the people in church that, you know, next weekend there is so-and-so is going to get married 3 times, and what? Sometimes they are not there at all. We don't even know who they are. But you go, it's actually worse when you go to the only officially recognized form of marriage in Rwanda. The guys appear sometimes even hours before the actual marriage, and they are pronounced husband and wife. They have not been prepared for this institution. And therein lies a significant gap.
And Charles,
actually, let me tell you, your question is very, very important, and makes a lot of sense. You have been very observant. I think you have attended all churches in Ethiopia. I think I should take you so that you can go and address the pastors. You know, they are not taking enough time to prepare these young couples, and they should continue to help them, teach them, share the experience and their expected responsibilities in their relationship, and for the upbringing of their children, and their relationship with the society, and their responsibility in the society. They don't do much as they're supposed to be doing. So I wish you could go and tell them to do it better. But just a moment, give me a few minutes.
Yes.
I'm referring to the tradition. Religion did not start with Christianity.
Yes.
Africa was religious before Christianity came to Rwanda or to Africa. And every marriage had the involvement of God into it, and the society, the Rwandan society, used to prepare the couples.
That's very interesting.
Exactly, yes. The society preparing the couples.
And I'd like to add to that.
So the challenge to go to the Christian churches and to the mosques, and they have to do this job better, because they are betraying the society by not training them, by not teaching them.
And our families also have given up the role.
Yeah, because they were actually taken over by these new institutions.
I'd just like to add to that. Studies have actually shown that the median age for marriages in the country is around 21 years old.
Oh my
but
goodness.
technically speaking, 21 years old, you're finding yourself. I mean, remember how you were at 21, and this is the median age of marriages in the country. Our last tweet is from Sherry, and Sherry's tweet says that, a very nice discussion, I think the biggest plague in the divorce rates is the expectations that people impose on each other because of the convenient factor of comfort as opposed to the actual and meaningful reason of marriage. And this is what Bishop and Johnson have been saying. So we're coming to the end of our show. I would like us to give very quick closing remarks. I'll start with you, Charles, Werner, and Ephraim, before we give our guests the closing remarks. Please be brief.
Social media, Johnson Kavera, Bishop Ruchahana, and Ephraim Rwamwenje have accused me of promoting cohabiting. Let me say clearly what I meant. Let me put the record straight.
Yes, please.
I am not saying that cohabiting should replace marriage. All I am saying, let society be more accommodative to couples who want to stay together during the phase of getting to know each other, before the same society obliges them to get married in haste?
Bernard?
Yes.
Thank you, Charles. Bernard?
I think there has to be a lot of focus on building and going back the basics in terms of the family. We need to grow up with these values. And as long as we don't pay attention to the values, it doesn't matter. We grow up and we're animals. So I think we should put a lot of emphasis on values. Someone has to grow up with certain values, be able to do certain things. 2, I think the institution of marriage has more to do with duty than love, in my view.
In your
You
opinion?
know, you have to respect someone, you have to find a way of accommodating the differences, compromise, less about love, in my view.
In your view. Ephraim?
I would say, call a goat, and a cow a cow.
Okay.
In the fact that, one, we need to really address the fact that we have to address the fact that Rwandan families negatively influence the nature or comfort or health of marriages and of families. That's number one. Number two, we also have to be honest with ourselves about fidelity, or at least infidelity, in our society.
Interesting. Johnson, some closing remarks?
Yeah, I would say that the marriage is a contract that is protected by the state. But once things do not work out, there is a way out again. And this is through divorce instead of maybe killing each other,
Yes.
or doing other things that are bad. So I would say it can be done.
Okay. Bishop, closing remarks?
Thank you very much. I would think I will advocate that this issue be discussed in a deeper way.
Absolutely.
Marriage is central in the life of a nation and the life of any given society. We cannot take marriage lightly other than what is meant to be. With the concept of productivity, with human procreation, with the continuity of life, with the continuity of human values and decency and humanness required in a society, we need to work harder on all these contributing institutions to do their duty in order to bring normality and decency into marriage, to make a society. We cannot continue to have children running into streets with frustrations and the trauma because of bad relationships in the families. Love does accommodate everything. That's responsibility, respect, doing what you are supposed to do. It is covered into love.
And you echo what Brenna said, love is duty.
I'm in
as well.
agreement with her. I'm complimenting her.
Well, thank you very much, Bishop John Ruchahana, and thank you very much, Lawyer Johnson Kabera, and Ephraim Charles Bena. Always a pleasure to have you on the square. Thank you for joining us. We've come to the end of our discussion. Please keep the conversation going, as always, using our hashtag on Twitter, the Square RW. It's a very interesting topic, and I think we may have to come back for a deep dive into some of the issues. We've
Fidelity
talked
is an
about.
issue we need to tackle.
Exactly.
I agree with you. It's a deeper issue.
It's a deeper
social
issue in
media.
social media. Thank you very much. I'd like to also thank our partners of the Square Uzi Collections, who always keep Made in Rwanda and dressing us up and making us look really good, as well as Bourbon Coffee. Thank you. Have a good evening and see you again same time next week. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.